letters and the Naspers transcripts, which I went through about 18 years of those, there is a lot of commentary on Tencent and on Ponyma. And what Koos Becker said, he said, look, there is no management team on the planet in any tech or non-tech business anywhere in the world that is better than Tencent. Okay, these are his, and he didn't say this once. He said this multiple times. I said, whoa, that's a pretty bold statement to make, that here's this company which is the best management team. And now, if you look at the numbers for Tencent, you would not argue with that statement. Okay, I mean, Tencent went from nothing to becoming one of the largest market cap companies anywhere in the world, and it has dominated the businesses that they're in. They dominate in messaging and payments and video games and so on. They dominate a number of categories throughout. And so then I said, why does Koos Becker think that of all the businesses around, Tencent is the best? I said, is he biased? Is he that like he's drinking the Kool-Aid? Because after 18 years of 65% annualized return or something like that on your investment, you would have drunk a lot of Kool-Aid. Okay. And you would say, of course, you would create a big shrine to Ponyma and you would worship at that shrine every day. Why wouldn't you do that? But I said, what if he's actually rational and logical in making that statement? It's not just some statement he's making. So then I try to understand, why does Koos Becker think that Ponyma is better than Jeff Bezos, or Ponyma is better than Jack Ma, or Ponyma is better than any tech business, better than the Netflix CEO or anyone else? Why do they think that? And I kept thinking about this question. And then finally, it dawned on me why he says that. And I had an aha moment. I said, whoa, I think I figured this out. And what I figured out, and then I understood why Ponyma doesn't want to talk to anyone about anything. He just wants to be kind of buried deep somewhere, executing his model. So what I realized is, if you look at these 7 or 8 companies, the 3 or 4 in China and the 4 or 5 in the US, there are actually only 2 of them that understand capital allocation well. The 2 large tech businesses in the world that understand capital allocation well, according to me, are Amazon and Tencent. I don't think the others understand it, but I don't think they can execute. I'll explain why I say that. So if you look at the balance sheets of these large 7 or 8 players, they are all drowning in cash, except for 2 companies. Tencent has no cash. It has net debt. And for the most part, Amazon has no cash. It may not be net debt, but basically has almost no cash. But if you look at their competitors, so if you look at Microsoft, massive dividends and buybacks and, tens of billions, I haven't really looked at how much cash Microsoft has, but I have to imagine it's, up there, 50, 100, 150 billion, whatever. Amazon, Apple up there, Google up there, Alibaba up there, massive amounts of cash. And Tencent, no cash. And Amazon, no cash. So then I said, why do Tencent and Amazon have no cash when they have businesses? Some businesses of Amazon are gushing a lot of cash. Well, the reason is that in the case of Amazon, they keep throwing stuff against the wall. And they throw stuff against the wall at such a furious rate, in addition to investing in their existing core businesses, that they've never been in a situation where there's 30 billion sitting on the balance sheet. It's never happened, and it's unlikely to happen in the future. If you look at a business like Apple, it generates so much cash, but they have no use for the cash. So they invest what they can in their core business, And then beyond that, the only really meaningful thing they're able to do is buy back shares. And even after all the buybacks, they still end up with 100 plus billion just sitting on the balance sheet, and it's gushing massive amounts of cash every quarter. And then when I looked at Tencent, I find that the cash balance is negative, and it's been negative for a while. And I realized that basically Pony Ma has a very simple business model. And I don't think he's ever going to describe that business model to anyone. So here I am, the Indian guy has to describe the business model because he won't. Okay. And we had to do that in Arvind's class. So the business model is really simple. He has two businesses. One business that he has is his army of software engineers. I don't know how many engineers he has, maybe 25,000, maybe might be 50,000 now, but it's a large army of software engineers. And this army of software engineers, the way the software business works is that the productivity difference between an incredible engineer and just a good engineer could be 1,000 to 1. So you would be willing, as a company like Tencent, to even pay $50 million a year to a truly, truly incredible software engineer. And the run-of-the-mill ones, you might want to pay 100,000 or something like that. So we just have this massive variance. And Pony Ma understands that really well. And he's really good at sifting through, which are the rock stars, superstars. And he made sure that those guys are well taken care of, etc. So he's got this army of engineers. It's basically a massive bazooka that he has with this army of engineers. And he decides where and how he wants to fire the bazooka. And the way they fire that bazooka is, for the most part, even if they have some misses, they end up with this total dominance. So for example, they have total dominance on video games. Okay. And I realized that it really doesn't matter what the CCP or the Chinese government does regarding video games. It is like a pimple on a camel's butt from Tencent perspective. They have almost no profits or revenues from within China in video games. It's probably less than 5% of their video game top line and bottom line that's coming from China. So as soon as the Chinese Communist Party started making noise that this is not such a great thing to have all these people playing all these video games, within a femtosecond, that bazooka got completely pointed outside China. So he just took his army and said, okay, ignore China, let's focus on the rest of the world. And in fact, I would go even a step further and say, you could ban video games globally and Tencent would still continue to prosper because they would still have the army and the army would just get redirected. Yes, there is a portion of the army is very specialized on video games, but they would eventually be able to convert that into something else. So he's got basically this army which can do a lot of digital stuff in a variety of fields, and they're really good at it. So when Tencent makes, like for example, they made $15 billion cash flow last year, Pony Ma goes to his digital army and says, what do you need? How many more engineers would you like? And the math is really simple. Every $1 billion you spend gets you at least 5,000 great engineers. So if you take an average engineer, 200,000, 5,000 engineers would be $1 billion a year of expenditure. Okay, so they tell Pony Ma, Pony, give me $1 billion. So Pony says, yeah, that's okay. Here's your $1 billion, but that's not enough. Can you take $5 billion? And they say, no, we can't handle that. It's hard for us to hire 5 or 10,000 engineers. I cannot hire 25,000 great engineers. I don't know what I would do with them and how I would deploy them. So I cannot take more than $1 billion. So Pony says, it's so sad, but it's okay. Here's your $1 billion. Now Pony has 14 billion left. So then he goes to his business number two. His business number two is he's got 30 digital Warren Buffetts. Okay. And he says, these losers in business number one, they can't use my money. So here's 14 billion. Have fun. And then they go and they invest that in some of it will be whole acquisitions, but most of it is small minority stakes in a number of businesses. Okay. And that digital Warren Buffett, which is not one guy, maybe 20, 30 guys, put that 14, 15 billion to work. And just to make sure that all the money is used, Pony makes sure that they spend a little more than the cash he generates because it bothers Tony. It doesn't bother Sundar that 70 billion earns less than 1%. And it doesn't bother Apple that 100 or 150 billion earns less than 1%. And it doesn't bother Satya that 80, 100, 150 billion earns less than 1%. It bothers Purnima. And so Purnima doesn't even leave $100,000 with himself. If he makes 15 billion, he spends 15.5 billion because he wants to borrow at 1%. He doesn't want some checking or savings account giving him 1%. So he makes sure that when bazooka number one cannot use the money, he puts it into bazooka number two. And once he's fired both those bazookas, he's got no money left and he's very happy. Okay, then the following year, maybe he makes 20 billion. Again, he goes to his bazooka number one and they say, Pony, you come to us every year and you want to force feed us 50,000 engineers. We can't do it. Okay, I can take 6,000 and that's it. I can't take any more. So he gives them the billion too. And then again, he goes to the other team and says, my loser team number one cannot use anymore. You go to number two. So now here's the economics for the last 20 years, which Purnima will never tell you. I have to tell you, the Indian guy in the wonderful blue kurta. Okay, model number one, bazooka number one, earns 65% annualized return on capital invested. Okay, day in and day out. Any billion he puts in historically has made 65% a year. Model number two makes 35% a year. What a terrible business. Okay, so he's just got these two models. One has been pounding out 65% a year, and the second one has been pounding out 35% a year. Okay, the DNA. So I told you there were only two large companies that knew how to do this with using all the cash. What Tencent does actually runs circles around Amazon because Purnima is never going to hire a driver or a warehouse operator or some, freighter aircraft pilot and put them on his payroll. He's just not interested. He's only going to hire software engineers. Okay, that's what he wants to do. And so when some business needs drivers and warehouses and all that, Purnima is going to have a minority investment in that business through his bazooka number two. So he has a stake in PDD and JD.com and Meituan and all these companies that do all this crazy heavy lifting. He still gets the upside on those, but they're not on his payroll. Okay, it's an investment. Jeff loves to have those people on his payroll. And I think it's somewhat inferior at the end of the day to now it gives you more of a link with the customer. The relationship is tighter and the service levels could be probably be better. But I would bet that given the superiority of the Tencent model, it would not surprise me that if we look 10 years or 15 years from now, that it's the most valuable business on the planet. And to a large extent, I feel that they may even be able to transcend a bunch of stuff that the CCP is throwing at them and continues to throw at them. So I think what they would like, if the Chinese Communist Party would listen, is, listen, guys, just tell me all the rules right now. Don't dribble it out every few weeks. Just tell me all the rules that you want me to play with. And if you tell me those rules, I will reprogram my two engines to still do well based on those rules. And so, in the absence of clarity from the CCP telling them these are the rules, I think what Ponima has done, he just said, okay, let's fire both bazookas as much as possible outside China. And that's, I think, what they've done. They've taken their digital Warren Buffetts and almost instantly moved them completely out of China. They've already been doing non-Chinese investments forever. So they're really good at, I mean, they've dominated in the way they've invested around the world. And even anyway, the video games and all that was already outside China. So in both cases, he's doing that. And so what I well, just to come full circle, basically what I realized when I went through all of this is that if I had taken my shoes off, like Case Zakaria, and I had read 20 years of Tencent annual reports, I would be clueless. It was only because I got kind of cliff notes from Koos Becker. I had to go to a different source, which started to enlighten me a little bit about what was going on here. And I think I was speaking to the IR guys at Naspers a few months ago. And one of the junior guys made a comment. And I found that comment very, very, very stunning. They've publicly said that for the next 3 years, they won't sell any Tencent stock. They've made a public statement on that front. This guy says, we will never sell Tencent. Okay, so I said, okay, we have this Koos Becker saying that Ponima, be all, end all, great management team. And then this guy says, they will never tell it. What's in the water? You know, what's going on? So these statements compelled me to dig in. Like, why would you make a statement like that you would never sell something? And then I realized when I figured out that these two bazookas is going on, that, yeah, why would I sell? They're two great bazookas. It's got a great engine. It's firing. Let it rip. And so the market, basically, if you look at a business like Tencent, now, I don't want you to think of it as a stock tip, okay? Please don't think of these as stock tips. Don't go buy Rain or Tencent or any of these things just because me and the kurta is telling you that. I'm not telling you to go buy anything. All I'm trying to say is that I think that the odds are high that the way that business is configured, that it's going to dominate for a long time. And it was kind of fun to, and the other thing the bigger lesson I want you to all take home is you can get a sense that a business has an advantage from either being a customer or looking at their numbers or different things. It can give you a sense that there is an advantage. It may take a lot of digging and it may take a lot of work to actually understand what that advantage is. And that can be a big edge. Once you can figure that out, then because a lot of people won't spend the time or the effort to do that. And then that can also give you very strong conviction to hold on when they have, temporary headwinds or something.